The FDA seems to exist. It's supposed to be here to protect us. It's supposed to protect our food. It's supposed to protect our water. It's supposed to protect, us from bad drugs too, certainly. Is it doing that? No. In fact, we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. But what it does do is the FDA does prevent us from accessing a lot of really important information about herb supplements and drugs. And they control what the medical students learn. Also, there's a lot of government censorship. See, drug companies have no economic interest in promoting herbs because they can't make any money off them. See, you can't, you can't patent an herb. Why? God made the herb. Like you can patent Tylenol because some company made Tylenol, but you can't patent echinacea or golden seal because it's just out there in the field. Anybody can grow it. Anybody can pick it. And so there's no money in it to speak of compared to the amount of money you can make off of a prescription drug. Therefore, the FDA has rules that prohibit people from learning how vitamins and herbs can help their conditions. Additionally, all the training most MDs receive is pharmaceutical-based unless they take the initiative and spend their own hard-earned cash. And I don't know if any of you get Time Magazine, but just this last week before I left on this tour, Time Magazine had a story about how finally, after years, the American Association of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers has issued a guideline to stop giving doctors all this free, what they'll do is a new drug comes out. The doctor will get an ad saying, you can go down to Cancun free on us for a week and get some important in-service training about the new drug Ghibli bomb, or whatever they call it. And, and then they get down there and they can play golf, they can surf, they can lay in the sun, they can gamble in the casinos, and a couple hours a day they have to sit through some in-service training. And then they get lots of free samples. And I'm sure all of you have been to a doctor and he's given you free samples of a drug. Well, that's how they get them. Well, finally, and believe me, this was getting to be a scandal. Both the AMA was trying to disprove it, and even the pharmaceutical companies said, let's stop this. Because they were sending doctors off to Hawaii, doctors down to the Caribbean, and giving them all sorts of free benefits, free golf clubs, this, that, and the other thing. Okay, I talked about that. Now, what about the profits? These profits are huge. Now, just let's look at an example. Let's take Celebrex, which is really advertised a lot right now. A typical consumer price for 100 tabs of Celebrex, 100 milligrams, is $130. How much does it cost the drug company to make that? 60 cents. That's a 21,712% markup. I wish I could do that with my book. Man, I could sell one book and retire, amen. Here's Prozac, everybody's favorite drug, Prozac. $247 for 100 Prozac capsules. It cost them 11 cents. You see why that's such a huge cash cow? That's a 224,973% profit. And then there's the ever-popular Xanax, which is a highly addictive drug, by the way. Costs $136. It actually cost the drug company a little over 2 cents. So that's a 569,958% profit. And, can you justify that? What will the drug companies say? They'll say, well, we have our research and development costs. It costs us a lot of money. It costs us millions and millions of dollars to bring one of these drugs to market. Now, there is some truth in that, yes. But there's other issues here. The FDA artificially keeps prices high. If you look at this chart, you'll see, first of all, quantity, the name of the drug, quantity and potency. Then the purple is the U.S. price. The green is the European price. The pink is the Canadian price. So, for example, Cipro, which we're hearing a lot about right now because of anthrax. Well, that costs $87 for 20 Cipro tablets. In Europe, you can get it for $40. In Canada, you can get it for $53, $55. Or Prozac. Prozac, $91 for 20 capsules. In Europe, it's only $18.50. And in Canada, it's $20.91. You could just drive 800 miles north or whatever it is, and, but that's illegal. The FDA, if they catch you crossing the border with your Prozac, you'll get busted for illegal drugs, even though it's the same drug. And if you try and go on, there's all sorts of websites you can go to where you can buy drugs over in Europe. You have a prescription, it's a perfectly legitimate prescription, you give them the number and they'll sell you the same drug at like half the price. But if the FDA catches it going through the border, why aren't these guys watching for terrorists, Anyhow, if they catch it, they confiscate it and you're out your money. And plus, the FDA has put pressure on these other countries to shut down these operations. Just like, we put the squeeze on Colombia to shut down the cocaine thing. And they refuse to let foreign drugs in the United States. And here's the hypocrisy. The FDA has told Congress that the drugs over in Europe are inferior to the drugs we make here in America. What they don't tell you is the raw materials that the U.S. drug companies use to make the drugs here come from Europe. So it's a bunch of hypocrisy. Drug companies patent drugs and then charge very high prices. But the problem is that now they say, it's research and development costs. What they don't tell you is that most of the research and development is done at our expense at the National Institute of Health. Think about that. Here's a taxpayer-funded, awesome laboratory. I mean, this is like the state-of-the-art world laboratory for doing biochemical research in medicine. And our tax dollars are paying for it. Then when they come close to discovering some wonderful drug, the drug company snaps it up and patents it. And then turns around and we pay for it twice if we buy the drug. Additionally, not many new drugs that come on the market are really new. They're just tiny variations on old drugs. Why do they do that? Well, like, for example, let's take Prozac. You saw the kind of money Prozac is making. Well, the patent on Prozac is running out. There's not much they can do about that except, try and bribe the generic companies, which they sometimes do, to not make generics. So what they do is they make Prozac Jr., or they make Son of Prozac, or they make Luvox, or they make Buspar, or whatever. And these are just drugs that are just eeny-weeny tweaks in the original formula, so it doesn't take that much R&D to bring those things to market. Now, the Bible tells us we should count the cost and things. Many drugs are quite effective, and like I've said, like when I had kidney stones and they were kicking up and I had kidney pain in my back, I went to the hospital. I says, hey, give me drugs, man. That was okay. But they do carry a price beyond the dollars. Because they are toxic, many drugs attack the very body systems they're supposed to help. And I'm going to give you an example. I wish I had time for more than one. Cardiac disease is the #1 killer in America. These are the common drugs that are given to people for cardiac disease. ACE inhibitors are prescribed. They cause zinc deficiency. Zinc is absolutely essential for muscle function and also for what are called sphincters or valves to work properly. Gee, does your heart have some valves in it? Yeah, it does. Beta blockers deplete coenzyme Q10 and melatonin. Now, some of you might not know what CoQ10 is, but it's a coenzyme, which actually means it's a vitamin, but not really. And it's very helpful to the heart because what it does is it energizes the mitochondria of your cell, which is the energy factory within each and every cell of your body, to give the muscles energy to work. Now, of course, the heart is the one muscle that, beats all the time. It never rests. You can be fast asleep and your heart's still lub-dubbing away, lub-dub. So it needs CoQ10 desperately. In fact, if any of you in here don't know this, if you have heart problems, you should be taking CoQ10, at least 100 milligrams a day. It's a little expensive, but believe me, it's worth its weight in gold. Calcium channel blockers deplete potassium. And remember what I said before about the fact that since the changes in diet in the turn of the century, Americans are getting far too much sodium and their potassium-sodium balance is out of whack? Well, if you deplete potassium, it makes the energy pump that's in every cell of your body work that much less efficiently. And that means your heart is going to work less efficiency. Digoxin which is a major heart stimulant, depletes calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, and vitamin B1. Hydralazine, another key drug, depletes CoQ10 and vitamin B6. You absolutely have to have vitamin B6 for your heart to work. So the very drugs that are supposed to be helping you are actually, and it's like basically what happens is, once you get on these things, unless you take these supplements to help your body out, and then take more than normal, in fact, you're going to be on those things the rest of your life, and probably in ever-increasing doses. And of course, that's what the medical, or at least the pharmaceutical companies want. They want you hooked on these things. Now, we talk about the drug war and everything. Believe it or not, far more people die every year from prescription drugs than die from illegal drugs. I mean, you could take all the people that die of heroin overdose or meth or ecstasy. We're hearing a lot about kids dying. And I'm not diminishing the tragedy of kids or adults that die from illegal drugs. What I'm saying is it's nothing compared to the people that die from killer drugs. And see, here's the difference, okay? If you are an adult or a young person and you're dumb enough to get into heroin or meth or ecstasy, you know it's dangerous. You've been told by your parents and your teachers and the DARE program or whatever the heck, that it's dangerous. You figure, well, I'm a kid, I'm going to live forever, so I'm going to take this anyway. Ha, ha, ha. What do you know? Well, on the other hand, these prescription drugs, we're told they're safe. We aren't told that they have these, well, we're told they have side effects, but they're kind of minimized. Now, Lancet magazine is like the official journal of the British Medical Society. It indicated the number of deaths from prescription drugs tripled between 83 and 93. Now, JAMA, that's the Journal of the American Medical Association, showed that 106,000 hospitalized patients, that's not the people that are dying at home in their bed. These are hospitalized patients, die annually from drugs. 2.2 million suffer serious complications. And again, these are from prescription drugs. Drug reactions are the fourth leading cause of death in America. Think of that. They're right behind, heart disease, cancer, and AIDS. This is a statement by a guy from Harvard Medical School. Medicine is now a high-risk industry like aviation, but the chance of dying in an airplane accident is 1 in 2 million, while the chance of dying from a medical accident is 1 in 200. Think of that. You look at a big hospital, probably like one you might have in Kansas City, 200 people probably go in and out of that place every day. One of them probably will die, and not just from old age. I already said this, but pharmaceutical drugs kill far more people than illegal street drugs. Now think of this. Drug deaths are the daily equivalent of a jumbo jet crashing and killing every single one of its passengers every day of the year. 290.4 people. Now imagine this. Let's say you're Boeing and you're making jets. And every day, a Boeing jet crashes. Just... You think there'd be an outcry? You think the press and the government would be all over Boeing like a cheap suit? Of course they would. But where's the outcry? Why isn't 2020 and 60 Minutes and all the rest doing big exposés on this horrible thing? We're all stunned because 3,000 people were killed in the World Trade Center incident. But heck, that's just 10 days of what goes on in taking drugs in America. I'll tell you where the outcry is. These news agencies, ABC, CBS, NBC, and so on, are getting millions and millions of dollars from the drug industry, and they aren't going to say much. There's a problem of bias as well. The FDA is very, very slow to react to drug problems. And we're going to talk about that more in a couple of minutes. But it's really kind of a scandal. They won't do anything. I mean, it's like, half the country has to be dead before they'll take a drug off the market. Also, there's evidence of FDA preference for drug treatments over other methods that work better. And the other thing that really irritates me, and I kind of alluded to this, is media like television, Almost every night on the news in our area, at least, in eastern Iowa, we get these puff pieces about the wonderful hospitals and the wonderful drugs and this new drug came out and how it's going to help so many women with this or so many men with that or children or whatever and how great this is. And then they downplay the drug deaths. You never hear about them. But man, oh man, if somebody gets sick from a vitamin or if somebody gets sick from an herb, it's practically, front page, 25-point headlines. So, that isn't balanced. That isn't balanced at all. Think of it this way. In the past decade, over 1 million people have died from taking properly prescribed pharmaceutical drugs, and very little is done about it. In the same time, less than 5 people have died from herbs, and yet comfrey is now a controlled substance. It's a very wonderful herb, but you can no longer buy it for internal consumption in any health food store legally. You can buy it if you buy it like in bulk, and it's only going to be used as a poultice or something, but you can no longer get it in a capsule. And that's, I think, a real serious crime against humanity. Forget the human tragedy for a moment. Look at the money. James Duke, who's an awesome herbalist, and he's also a USDA licensed medical botanist, points out that drug reactions cost the citizens of this country $136 billion a year, and the drug companies only make $100 billion. So we're actually losing money, aside from losing lives. But like a preacher friend of mine said, if it don't make sense, there's a buck in it.